In this video, we'll make a magical wizard character in Affinity Designer. Let's get started. Okay, to start off, let's make the wizard's cloak. I'm going to combine a few shapes to make this happen. So let's go over to our shapes and click on the little gray triangle to open them up. And then I'm going to select the tier tool. We're actually going to use this tool quite a bit throughout this project. Okay, so with the tier tool dragged out like that, I'm going to go ahead and choose my color for the cloak. I think I want to make this a sort of bluish purple color like that. Now, I want this to be the top of his cloak, sort of like a hood going over him. So I'm going to use these orange nodes to adjust how this looks. Using this node, I can push it over to the side. And then using this node, I can round it out to sort of give it that hood shape. I think I'll round it out like that, and I can also adjust this node to round it out even more. I think I will drag that up just a little bit. And now we have his hood. For the body of the cloak, I'm going to go over to the shapes, and I'll select the rounded rectangle tool. I'll click and drag out a rounded rectangle. And then I'll move it into place so that the sides line up with the hood. Like that. I think I'll also round the edges just a little bit more. Alright, and I think that looks pretty good. And as one last shape, we have the hood and the cloak coming down, but I want the cloak to flow outward like this. To create that pointed, flowing shape, I'm going to grab the tier tool one more time. I'll click and drag that out. And then I'm going to place it on its side. I'll move it into place. And this time I think I'll angle it downward and then up. You can see this is sort of giving it that flowing shape. And I'll place it like that. So now we have our basic shape. I'm just going to select all of the shapes while holding Shift. And then up here, I'm going to add them together by clicking here. This has combined all of these shapes into one. And now we can grab the node tool and adjust how this looks even more. You can see we have quite a few nodes where we don't need them. I'm just going to delete that sharp node there and adjust this node. Maybe I'll delete that one as well. Any node where there's a sharp corner like this, I want to change this into a smooth node. And then I can just drag this out as much as I want to get the shape that I want. Again, we have a bunch of extra nodes, so I'm just going to delete those. Okay, and feel free to adjust this however you'd like. I kind of want this to flow outward a little bit more, so I think this looks pretty good. You can adjust the hood at this point as well. I think I'm going to drag this one down a little bit. And maybe drag these three nodes up a little bit. Alright, so at this point we have the wizard's cloak. Next, let's make his face. I'm going to use the tier tool once again to make the face. I'll just click and drag this outward, and then I'll give it a skin-toned color. So I'll bring it over to the oranges. And then I'm just going to move this into place, and I'll make it a bit smaller. And I think I'll also move this over to the side just a little bit, and I'll curve it just a little bit. And I'll bring this node up. I'm just trying to create a slight teardrop shape with it going over to the side just a little bit, but it's mostly just a circle. Okay, let's make the eyes next. I'm going to go into our shapes and select the segment tool. Then I'll just click and drag to create our segment. I'll make this white. I'm going to select the ellipse tool, and then while holding Shift, I'll just click and drag out a perfect circle. And I'll just place it like that. I'll make it a nice brown color, and then I'm going to make it a child layer to our segment. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's add some detail to the eyes by adding some eye sparkles with the ellipse tool. Again, while holding Shift, I'll click and drag out a circle here, and then I'll make this white. I'll do this one more time while holding Shift. This one I'll move a little closer. Alright, and I think I'm going to make this more of a light brown color like that, so it sort of blends in with the eye a little bit more. Alright, and there we have it, our eye is done. I'm just going to select this eyes layer, and I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Command or Control J. So now we have two eyes. I'll just grab the Move tool, and while holding Shift, I'll move it over. I think I want to select both of the eyes by holding Shift and clicking, and I'm just going to lower them down a little bit. Next, let's make the nose. I'm going to grab the triangle tool for this, and I'll click and drag out a triangle like that. I think I want it to be a slightly more vibrant color, and maybe a little bit more red. There we go. And then I'm going to convert this shape to curves up in the context toolbar. I'm going to select the two bottom nodes, and then I'm going to convert them into smooth nodes. So now we have a shape that looks sort of like a candy corn. I think that's pretty cute. I'll just shrink it down a little bit. Alright, next let's make the mouth. I'm going to grab the rounded rectangle tool for this. I'll click and drag out a rounded rectangle like that, and I'm going to make this the same brown color as the eyes. So I'll just select that. So right now he's making a pretty blank expression. I'd rather him be smiling just a little. So I'm going to convert this shape to curves up in the context toolbar. And then from the center, I'm just going to drag this down a little. And I'll do the same for this top line, just dragging it down a little to make a smile. Now you might be noticing we have some corners going on. I'm just going to delete this node. And delete this node, and I'll make them smooth nodes so I can curve that without having those corners. I can see we also have a little bit of a corner right here. I'll just delete that, and delete that, and I think that's looking pretty nice. Although we can change these two nodes also to smooth nodes, just to make the corners of his mouth look a little bit more smooth, and I think that looks pretty nice. Okay, with the basic face done, I want to add some wizard details by giving him a cute little mustache. So I'm going to grab the tier tool for this. Off to the side, I'll just click and drag out a tier tool shape. And I'll go ahead and move this node all the way over. I'll drag this one all the way over. And then I'll put it on its side. Maybe I'll make it a little bit skinnier, to sort of create that mustache shape. I want this to also look like an old wise wizard, so I'm going to change his hair color to a super light gray. And then I'll just rotate this and move it in place. It should be placed under the nose, so I'll just move the layer like that. Alright, and that looks pretty good for this first mustache. And I want to duplicate this, so I'll press Command or Control J. Using the Move tool, I'm going to right-click, and then go all the way down to where it says Transform, and I'm just going to flip it horizontally. Alright, and now I have the other half of his mustache. Looking good. So right now the mouth is sort of overlapping. I want to lower that down just a little bit. Okay, and I think that's looking pretty good. We just have a few more steps to finish off his face. One is I'd like to give him eyebrows, and I'm just going to use the pen tool for this. I'm just going to click and drag to start my curve, and click and drag to finish my curve over here. I'll make the stroke color the same color as the mustache, and then I'll go to the stroke panel, and I'll just increase the width to make them nice and thick. Now, I sort of messed up the beginning of my line. You see how it's curving sort of weird? I really just wanted this to be a simple curved shape. So I'm going to go over here and select the node tool, and then I'll just fix this. I should have dragged up and then down like that. So I'm just going to do this one more time with the pen tool. Oh, but I need to finish my line. Whoops! I'll press Command or Control Z to undo that. And to finish this pen tool path, I'll press Escape on my keyboard. Alright, I'm also going to turn snapping off. I'm getting so many snapping lines now. I'll just turn that off, and now I can click upward and then downward. There we go, that's a pretty good shape. I'll just grab the node tool to adjust the eyebrow a little bit though. And I'll do the same over here. I may have made the eyebrows a little too long. Okay, with that, I think the eyebrows look pretty good. So the next thing I want to do is create a beard. I'm actually going to use the tier tool once again, and I'm just going to click and drag out tier shapes here. Now, going into our color panel, right now I have a fill and a stroke. You can see that stroke on the outside of the shape. I'm going to tell the stroke to have no fill. That way we can just see the shape a little bit better. And then I'm just going to duplicate this shape a few more times. I'll grab the Move tool for this, and I'm just going to hold down Command or Control on my keyboard, and then I'll click and drag, which will duplicate the shape a few times. We're mostly paying attention to the bottom for this part, so just make sure you like the silhouette of the beard at the bottom. I think that looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to select all of these layers by holding Shift, and I'm going to add them together. Now that we've done that, I'm going to grab the Node tool, and I'm just going to delete all of these center nodes. So starting from here, I'll click downward and I'll delete all of those. And then using these nodes, I'm just going to try my best to line it up here. It's a little tricky, just get it as close as you can, lining it up between these two colors. I'll do the same on this other side. Trying my best to line that up. Here we go. And then you can click and drag on this line to expose the face again. There we go! Now he has a cute little beard. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, and final touch for his face. I want to add a few little hair tufts coming out from his hood, so I'm going to grab the tier tool once again, and I'll just drag out one tier tool shape, and another. There we go. And to snap these into his face, I'm going to select both of these by holding Shift, and then I'm going to drag them so that they're a child layer to the main head shape. That way they're just tucked under there nicely. Okay, we have a lot of layers going on. I'm going to select all of these elements of his face here. I'll hold Command or Control to get the eyebrow, and I'm going to group them together with Command or Control G. And I'm just going to leave the beard separately for now. Okay, so I think our wizard is looking so cute. I want to add to this cuteness even more by giving him some pointy little shoes. So to do this, I'll start with the base of his shoe by using the rounded rectangle tool. And I'll just click and drag this out and make it nice and rounded like that to sort of create a pill shape. I want these shoes to be a similar color to the cloak, so I'll just sample that and apply it, but I think I want them to be a little less saturated and a little lighter like that. Okay, with the color all set, I'm going to grab the tier tool once again. I'll click and drag out a tier shape, and I'm just going to move this over to create a point. And then I can rotate it and place it on the shoe. Okay, once you have the basic shoe pointiness, we can go ahead and select both of these layers, and I'll just add them together. And then using the node tool, I'll just delete the extra nodes that are creating weird areas like this. I'll delete that and delete that. Now I think this shoe's looking pretty good. I'm going to convert this to a smooth node. That's better. Alright, and we have our shoe! How cute! I'm going to use the Move tool to move this in place. Maybe I'll angle it just a little bit downward. And I'm going to tuck this underneath his cloak like that. Okay, I like how that shoe looks. That's super cute. So let's duplicate it and move it over here. I'm just going to hold down Command or Control to duplicate this super quickly. And then I'll place it like that. Okay, so now is the tricky part. If we place the shoe underneath the cloak like this, you won't be able to see the cute pointiness of the shoe. And if I put it above the cloak, then we see the whole shoe and it just looks a little strange. So I'm going to do some tricky maneuvering here. First, I'm going to duplicate this shoe with Command or Control J. And then with that duplicate copy, I'm going to place it above the cloak. Now I'm going to select the duplicate shoe and the cloak, and then up here I'm going to press the subtract button. And now you can see the cloak has this cutout portion right here, so now we're fully exposing the shoe. I don't want it fully exposed though, so I'm going to go and select the node tool, and then I'm going to delete this node right here. And using this node, I'm just going to move it like that, and now you can see the shoe is sort of peeking out from underneath the cloak. Okay, we just adjusted the cloak a little bit, and I realized that I forgot a step. I wanted to create an opening to the cloak, so I'm going to grab the tier tool, and I'll just click and drag like this to sort of create an opening to the cloak. I'm going to make this a child layer to the cloak, and I'll also make it a nice deep color. Okay, that's better. I just forgot that step. All right, he's looking so good. To really emphasize that he's a wizard, I think we should give him a magical staff. So let's make that next. I'm going to grab the rounded rectangle tool, and I'll click and drag to create that shape. This has been placed as a child layer to our cloak, so I'm just going to drag this all the way to the top so we can see it. Then we can make this a nice color like this. There we go. And now we can begin to build his magical staff. Maybe I'll make it a little lighter. There we go. Alright, to make his staff, this is the main body of it. I'm going to drag out another rounded rectangle like this. And another one like this, just right in the center like that. For this stripe, I'm going to make this a darker color. And I'll make it a child layer to this extra piece we created. I'm going to convert this rounded rectangle to curves, and then using the node tool, I'm just going to drag this downward to create more of a 3D effect, like it's wrapping around the staff. Alright, then I'm going to grab the ellipse tool, and I'll click and drag while holding Shift. I want this to be above these layers, so this is sort of like a little holding place for the magical orb. I'll just put that there, and then I'll drag out a bigger circle, which is going to be the magical orb at the top of his staff. For this orb, I think I want it to be a nice bright green color. Okay, now that I've done that, I think I just want to adjust this circle right here and make it a little bit smaller. Also, I think I want to turn snapping back on, just to make sure that all of these things are lined up. So grabbing this rounded rectangle, I'm going to grab the move tool and just make sure this is lined up with this staff right here. There we go. I'll make sure that this stripe is lined up and centered. Yep. And the circle next. And last, the circle. Okay, I think I actually want to flatten this down just a little bit. There we go. And now I'm just going to adjust the orb to make it look more shiny and magical. To start, I'm going to duplicate this circle twice, so I'll press Command or Control J. With this top circle, I'm just going to move it over to the side and down like this. Then I'll select the top two, and I'm going to use the subtract operation. So now we have a little piece right here that I'm going to make a darker color just to add a little bit of a shadow there. Nice! Next, I'm going to grab the ellipse tool and I'll just hold down Shift and I'll click and drag to create a little light spot over here. I'll make it a nice light green color like that. And then I'll do it one more time, holding Shift. And this one I'm going to make pure white. Okay, so the magical staff is done. I think this looks so good. But the wizard needs to hold on to it somehow, so let's make an arm next. I want the wizard cloak to look very magical, and I want it to sort of look like he has floaty long sleeves. So I'm actually going to use the tier tool again. I'll click and drag out a tier tool shape. I'm going to make it the same purple color as his cloak, but a little bit darker. And then I'm just going to use the move tool to place it. Just so you can sort of see what I'm trying to do here. So I want it to start up here and float out, and his arm will be somewhere up here, so we'll have a big open sleeve. But this doesn't look quite right. I'm going to grab the node tool, and I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Maybe bring that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. To make this look more like an arm socket, I also want to convert this shape to curves, and then convert this node right here into a smooth node. Then I can adjust this a little bit, like that. Alright, and I think that looks pretty good. So there we have his arm reaching across. Now to continue working on his sleeve, I'm going to grab the ellipse tool, and I'll just click and drag while holding Shift to make a perfect circle that I'll place inside the sleeve like this. I'm going to make this a dark color. Let's do the same dark color that I used here. And I'll make it a child layer to the sleeve. So now you can see the inside of the sleeve like that. I think that looks pretty nice. Inside the sleeve, I'm going to add an arm. To do that, I'll just use the pen tool. I'll click and drag starting here, and then I'll end it somewhere over here. For this arm piece, I'm just going to grab the skin color right here. I'll apply that, but uh-oh, I applied it to the fill instead of the stroke. I'll just switch those colors. And then I'll go to the stroke panel and increase the width until it's the thickness that I'd like for his arm. Then I'm going to place this as a child layer to the circle so that it's just snapped in right there. Next, to finish off his arm, I'm going to grab the rounded rectangle, and I'm going to click and drag out a rounded rectangle like this, and I'll place it above everything. Right now this shape has a stroke and no fill. I want the opposite, so I'll click like that. I'll make this a little bit bigger, and I'll just place it at the end of his arm. So this is how he's going to grasp onto the staff. I'm going to add a little bit of a thumb right here, so I'll use the pen tool to do that. Again, I'll just turn off snapping for a moment, and I'll click and drag here and here. I'm going to click on the stroke and add the skin color, and then I'll go into the stroke panel and I'll just lower the width down like that. Okay, looks like he's ready to hold on to his staff. So over here in the staff area, I'm just going to group all of these layers together by holding Shift and then Command or Control G to group them, just to keep them all together. And then using the Move tool, I'm just going to move the staff into place like this. I think the staff needs to be a little bit longer though, so going into the group, I'll just click on the rounded rectangle, and then I'll drag this down just a little bit. Then I'll select the whole group again, and I'll raise it up. Okay, and you see how his thumb is in the front? I actually want it behind the staff, so I'm going to click and drag this underneath, and now you can see it's sort of wrapping around. I don't really like how it's poking out though, so I'm actually just going to move it back like that to tuck it in. Now for the colors, I don't really like how the staff looks anymore. I think the brown and his skin color are a little too similar. So opening up the group, I'm just going to click on this rounded rectangle, and then I'll hold Shift and select the other one. And going into our colors, I'm just going to make this a deeper color. Whoops, I'm changing the stroke. I'll undo that. Go into the stroke color, and now I'll make it a deeper color, and I think that contrast just looks a bit better. Okay, congratulations! We have all of the elements. So now we can finish off our character by adding some shading and some little details like that. So first, I want to add a little bit of a shadow to the cloak. Coming into our layers over here, I'm just going to find our cloak. There it is. And then using the pen tool, I'm just going to click and drag up here. I'll try to match it so that it's right on the corner of his hood like that. And then I'm just going to drag it downward and across his sleeve like that. And then I'll just go all around like that. So basically, I'm just trying to add shading to this side of his cloak, and we'll make it a child layer so that it's tucked in nicely. For the shadow, I'm going to make it black. Then I'm going to change the blend mode to soft light. Let's just tuck it into the cloak right now so it looks better. There we go. And then I'll just lower the opacity of this layer to make it less intense. I really like using soft light as a blend mode for this, because it sort of gives a better color. If I was using the normal blend mode, it'd look like that, which also looks nice, but it sort of muddies the color. So I like soft light. I think that looks good. Okay, next I want to shade the arm, so I'll just find the arms layer. Using the pen tool, I'm just going to start it up here. And then I'll go down like this and around the outside. I'll again make this black. I'll tuck it into the arm. I'll change it to soft light blend mode, and I'll lower the opacity down. Now, you can see right now that the shadow is going into this already shadowed part of the arm. I don't really want that, and I think by changing the order of these two child layers, we should be able to fix that. I'll just move this underneath that circle layer, and now you can see the arm looks better. Okay, and one last thing I want to shade is the face. So I'll find that face layer there. And once again, I'll start on the outside, and I'll bring it around like this. I'll include the beard in that, and then I'll just go all the way around like this. I'll change the color to black, and then I'll make it a child layer to the face. I'm going to change the blend mode to soft light, and then I need to lower the opacity quite a bit. This is supposed to just be a nice soft shadow. You can see though that the beard didn't get a shadow because it's on a different layer. So I'm going to go in here and duplicate this with Command or Control J. And then I'll just make it a child layer to the beard. So now the beard has a shadow and the face has a shadow, and I think that looks pretty nice. Okay, a few more shadows that I want to add are just a few shadows to the ground, and I'm just going to quickly do this using the ellipse tool, so I'll just drag out a nice big circle for that. Then I'm also going to drag a little bit of a shadow underneath the staff. Then I'm also going to enhance this shadow by tracing just underneath the wizard, kind of tracing right along that edge there. And of course I'll need to lower the opacities of these. And now that I've added those shadows, I'm thinking the shoes are a little bit too light of a color, so I'll just quickly darken those. And just to wrap everything up and add to the magic, I'm going to add a few little star shapes around the staff, just to look like it's a sparkly magical staff. And just like that, we have an adorable magical wizard all finished. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next Affinity Revolution tutorial.